Welcome back to High Class Gear. Get yourself ready for another great video. You won't find anyone with more realistic and intriguing stories from the big 80s and the weird 90s than this channel. If you came here looking for something strange, creepy, car chases, fights with police, dumb mistakes that would come back to haunt me, or even for a little bit of knowledge, you've definitely come to the right place. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you stay up to date with all the great content coming your way. The following story takes place in the year 1982, when I was 8 years old. I had been warned not long ago about not attending American public schools, and my parents went on a mad dash trying to get me registered within my local neighborhood. Now I needed to get ready for school. I had my breakfast like normal, but the day felt foreboding, like something huge was coming that I didn't know. My parents had to go to their normal jobs, and I would have to go to school by myself and come home by myself. My mother, with tears in her eyes, handed over a silver neck chain with a rectangular military-style tag. This tag had my name and address written onto it in case something happened, and I was unconscious. In this way, the necessary emergency numbers and services could be called on my behalf. Attached to this silver dog chain were 2 keys, one for the top lock, and one for the doorknob. This precautionary tactic was done in order to safeguard me from the wave of child abductions that characterized the 80s. So epidemic were these child snatchings, the OJs recorded a song about it to draw the public's attention to it. I would be officially joining the generation of children known as Latch Key Kids. These were children that would start their day with the house empty and come home from school to the same empty house and only see his or her parent briefly. The homes were primarily ran by divorced women that lived in apartments or condos and worked outside of the home with no other support network from immediate or extended family. My situation was not like theirs, as I had both parents and an extended family, but I had to have a latch key, and I needed to leave the house before my parents left for work. I had been coached by my mother on what to do, what to expect, and the outside world that I could encounter. My mother had done her homework while registering me at the school, and my father seconded her advice. I remembered her words well, hugged my parents tightly, and held them for precious moments before they could finally peel me away and bid me farewell. None of us wanted this, but it was the only way after the threat from the government. It was 5:30 in the morning, and I was headed out. There's something you need to understand about this detail. As I made my way to the agreed pickup point, I was part of the desegregation programs that were sweeping the US at the time. The government and other special interest non-government groups had fought to try to desegregate public sectors, neighborhoods, and schools. But there was massive resistance from Americans on a popular level. The only way left was force. The problem was that the people in question didn't want to go to school together. Neither the parents nor the children wanted to really integrate because both sides knew the violence that would take place putting all these different nations together. In the US, even when the law wasn't pushing it, segregation happened naturally among different groups. It was orderly and helped to keep violence down. I watched my television in horror as people were yanked from shops, neighborhoods, and homes in a bid to make people live together. But what if they didn't want to? I drew closer to the pickup point, where I was told the large yellow bus would be. It was a Bluebird model, one of my favorite vehicles. These buses would pick up children from vastly different neighborhoods, drive them out of the inner city and into integrated schools, which were designed to make some sort of cultural and educational melting pot. I arrived at the pickup point and felt the tension immediately. All the children were standing in separate, well-ordered racial hierarchies. I didn't see my group or hear my language, so it looks like I was alone. I stood off to the side with my book bag and lunchbox under each arm. Some children inched forward to grab at my metal lunchbox. It was a Masters of the Universe with a plastic thermos inside, and I didn't want to part with it. Someone grabbed me from behind and I struggled under his grasp. I dropped my head under his arms to stop a chokehold and swung my lunchbox forward violently, hitting one of the children and cutting him. My lunchbox had a latch that unhooked and all of the contents spilled out, my thermos included. The kid I had hit started bleeding from a gash at the top of his forehead left by my lunchbox. I looked down at my lunchbox and saw the massive dent. There was so much blood on my box I could no longer make out Skeletor and He-Man on the front. The young boy must have been 2 years older than me, and he swore at me and ushered the other children to circle around me and get started with beating me up. Just then, I heard the hiss of the airbrakes on the bus and felt the warm air coming under it. The fight would have to stop. I grabbed my plastic thermos and put it inside my lunchbox. I couldn't find the lunch my mother had packed, so I had to leave it. All the other children quickly got in line, ignoring me as they boarded the huge yellow bus. No one even came to help me during the assault. No one paid me any mind. As I got up the steps of the bus and inside, I pulled out the yellow scrap of paper from my black Levi jeans pocket and handed it to him. It was slightly wet from me sweating in the fight, but the writing was still readable. I was meant to be on the 415 bus, route number 15. You could have at least kept the paper dry. Get your yellow ass in the back. Do you understand English? The driver looked at me and turned from his driver's seat to stare me down. His English was broken, and I looked at his name tag. Yuergin. He was an older man and from the looks of it, didn't like children. Why did he have this job driving a bus then, I wondered. I tucked my lunchbox in my bag and went to make my way to the first available seat I saw. When I went to sit down, I was blocked by 2 hands raised in objection. This seat's taken, darky. One boy looked at me, baring his teeth, or what little teeth he had. He was missing the top 2 and bottom 2 of his front teeth, but he knew enough to be hostile to me. I moved to the next seat and found similar and more hostile replies each time until finally I was at the back of the bus. I sat near the emergency door, the only place there was for me to sit. I looked to my right and left and saw no one I could even make eye contact with and not receive a frown or a harsh word. That was until I saw one face. I looked at the young boy and he raised his hand to wave at me. He was the only other one. So it was me and this Mexican kid by the emergency door, the only place we were allowed to sit. I hadn't even set off for school yet and I already hated everything. I faced the emergency door and looked out of the window, trying not to cry. My eyes welled up, but I held it back and this made me proud of myself. Maybe I'd only have to do this for a day or two and then I'd be back at home. I held out hope for myself. The bus made its way, making sharp turns around corners, swooping over railroad tracks and coming to a screech at red lights. At one point we stopped to pick up some children on the way and a crowd formed. The children on the bus opened the windows and shouted out to the kids outside. One of the children hollered, "We've got 2 in here! Those bastards are in here! They're in here! Get them out!" I heard the children yelling. I looked at the Mexican kid and we traded shocked glances. The bus started rocking back and forth. The kids outside were pushing the bus back and forth. I felt it might flop onto its side at one point. The children were sliding across the aisle from one side to another, some slamming into the windows. The shouting continued and the bus was rocking more violently. I thought it was going to flip at any moment. Just then, I saw the bus driver Yuergin come walking briskly to the back, his chubby bow legs barely able to hold him. "Listen," he said while looking at me, his eyes wide enough, I thought they would fall out of his head. "If this carries on, they'll destroy the bus. I'm going to give it another few minutes, and if it doesn't stop, I'll open the emergency door, and you and this one will have to take your chances." He looked side to side and then added, "There's no point in us all dying for just the two of you." He gestured to me and the Mexican kid. That emergency door had no stairs. It was a straight drop of 6 feet and was 24 inches across. There was no way jumping out we'd get away from the children's mob in time. And if we did, where would we go? This was an all-American neighborhood and we would definitely stand out. I looked out of the window and could no longer hold the water in my eyes and let the tears flow. I didn't want to lose my life. The Mexican student with me was similarly worried, but somehow he was able to hold it together better than me. I was running back and forth, checking if there was any side where I didn't see angry children that hated me. I couldn't see any way to escape. I saw a few adults with them. One of them spotted me and showed her middle finger and snickered. Yuergin charged back to the front, collected himself and slowly put his foot on the gas. The bus lurched forward slightly and started to pull away from the crowd. The bus came under fire from all kinds of projectiles. I heard glass breaking and the thumps of different objects against the side of the bus. They sounded like rocks. "Why can't you just get off the bus? Why are you here anyway?" one of the children said while looking at me in a panic but also annoyed. The other guy and I were the reason this whole thing was happening. At that moment, I wished I wasn't there. Why did I have to be there? The bus picked up enough speed it started to leave the crowd behind. The insults, profanity, and vile insults started to fade away and the sound of stuff hitting the bus became less frequent. I snuck a peek from the emergency door window and could see the crowd standing in the distance, shaking their fists and yelling words that were no longer audible. And we still hadn't reached the school yet, whatever that place was supposed to be. What I learned that day was that we had to go to school with all of these people, but none of them, and I mean absolutely none of them, wanted to go to school with each other. You can't legislate tolerance or friendship between communities. I also learned that there was no such thing as a blank slate. I'd heard people say before that kids didn't know hate and that they were so pure and innocent, but that was a complete lie. The kids that were shaking the bus were doing so despite the adults present. And they were my age. The kids at the pickup spot and on the bus didn't like me, and they were quite clear on that. No one told them to withhold seats, refer to me with strange names, or arrange themselves in racial groups and cliques. It's something they did naturally. Some people are born evil, and those kids shaking the bus were definitely a prime example of that. And I still had the rest of the school day ahead of me. Just wait till I get to school and tell you guys about what happened then. If you enjoy these videos and what we do here, subscribe to the High Class Gear channel, give us a like, and hit the notification bell so you always get updates on new content every week. Stay safe out there.